The confrontation didn't begin with shouting. That's what most people assume later. They imagine raised voices, tempers flaring, chaos breaking loose. But when it happened, the room was calm. Too calm. When Muhammad Ali walked in, the atmosphere felt controlled, measured in the way places do when power believes it has already won. It wasn't a gym. It wasn't a ring. It wasn't even public. It was a private space where people spoke freely because they believed consequences were contained. Ali had been invited, not summoned. That distinction mattered. At least at first. The men waiting for him were confident. Not aggressive. Not nervous. The kind of confidence that comes from leverage, not courage. Ali took his seat without ceremony. No entourage. No announcement. Just presence. The conversation began politely. Too politely. Compliments were exchanged. References to Ali's legacy. Respect carefully performed. Ali listened. He always did. Because bullying rarely announces itself directly. It tests boundaries first. One of the men leaned back in his chair and smiled. The smile didn't reach his eyes. He began speaking about arrangements. About understandings. About how things usually worked when influential people cross paths. Ali nodded. Let him talk. The man shifted tone gradually. Subtle pressure. A suggestion that cooperation was expected. That resistance would be inconvenient. Ali didn't interrupt. Didn't challenge. He waited. That patience unsettled them. They had expected a reaction by now. Curiosity. Pushback. Ego. Instead, Ali gave them nothing. The man across from him finally asked a direct question. He asked whether Ali understood what was being implied. Ali answered calmly. He said he understood what was being said. The man smiled again. Relieved. He thought the message had landed. That's when the bullying began in earnest. The man said Ali didn't need trouble. That public misunderstandings could escalate. That people with influence preferred smooth paths. Ali asked a single question. He asked whose path they were talking about. The room paused. The man responded carefully. He said paths intersect. That when they do, someone usually adjusts. Ali nodded slowly. Then said something quiet. He said adjustment is a choice, not an obligation. The smile faded. Another man spoke up. Less polished. More blunt. He said Ali had benefited from the system. That systems expect loyalty. Ali looked at him steadily. No angit. No sarcasm. Ali said systems that demand silence don't deserve loyalty. The temperature dropped. Not suddenly, but enough to be felt. The men exchanged glances. They hadn't expected resistance phrased that way. Not loud. Not defiant. Just firm. One of them stood up. Not aggressively, but deliberately. He walked toward a side table. Picked something up. That's when the gun appeared. Not waved. Not aimed. Just placed visibly on the table. The sound of metal touching wood was soft, but it cut through the room. This wasn't a threat spoken aloud. It was a reminder. Ali didn't flinch. Didn't lean back. Didn't tense. He looked at the gun, then back at the man. Ali said nothing. And that silence changed everything. Because guns are meant to provoke reaction. Fear. Submission. Escalation. Ali gave none of it. The man spoke again. He said this was just precaution. Just a sign that some conversations carried weight. Ali nodded. He said weight works both ways. That confused them. Ali leaned back slightly. Not away from the gun. Toward clarity. Ali said something that shifted the balance. He said when someone brings a gun into a conversation, it means they're out of words. No one laughed. Ali continued. He said words end when truth enters. And truth doesn't need a weapon. The man's jaw tightened. He hadn't planned for this. The gun was supposed to end the discussion. Instead, it had exposed it. Ali didn't accuse them. He didn't threaten. He simply asked another question. He asked whether they planned to use it. The room went silent. That question wasn't rhetorical. It was precise. Because now the stakes were clear. If they said yes, everything escalated beyond control. If they said no, the gun lost its power. The man hesitated. Just long enough. Ali waited. He didn't look away. Didn't stare the man down. Just waited. Finally, the man said no. Of course not. It was symbolic. Ali nodded, then said something quietly devastating. He said symbols work best when everyone believes in them. Ali stood up. Not abruptly, deliberately. The men tensed. Ali raised his hands slightly, palms open. Not surrender. Transparency. Ali said he wasn't here to be threatened. And he wasn't here to threaten anyone. He said he'd listened. He understood what they wanted. And the answer was no. The man with the gun spoke sharply. He asked if Ali understood the consequences. Ali answered immediately. He said consequences exist whether you accept intimidation or not. Ali added something else. Something that froze the room. He said the difference is who lives with themselves afterward. Ali turned to leave. No one stopped him. The gun stayed on the table, unmoved. That mattered. Because the moment Ali walked away unchallenged, the power dynamic collapsed. The men realized it at the same time. They hadn't intimidated Ali. They'd revealed themselves. Ali reached the door. Paused. Not for drama. For closure. He turned back once. Looked at the table. At the gun. At the men. He said one final sentence. Calm. Measured. He said bullying only works when the other person believes you're willing to finish what you start. Then he left. The door closed softly behind him. Inside the room no one spoke. Because they all understood what had just happened. The gun had been meant to end the conversation. Instead it had ended their leverage. And from that moment on everything would change. The room stayed silent long after Muhammad Ali walked out. No one moved toward the door. No one reached for the gun. No one spoke. That silence was the first consequence. What Ali had done was simple but devastating. He had refused to play the role they had written for him. They expected fear. Or defiance. Or negotiation. What they got was dismissal. Inside the room, the men began replaying the moment in their heads. Not the words. The timing. The gun had appeared too early. That was the mistake. A weapon introduced before dominance is established doesn't create control. It reveals uncertainty. And everyone in that room knew it. Within minutes of Ali leaving, the meeting dissolved. No conclusion reached. No agreement formed. No next steps defined. The leverage they thought they had evaporated the moment Ali chose not to acknowledge it. That night calls were made. Not angry ones. Careful ones. Ali's name carried weight in places those men did not fully control. Press. Community leaders. Legal circles. They realized too late that threatening Ali wasn't just about him. It was about the audience around him. Ali, meanwhile, didn't go home angry. He didn't rehearse arguments. He didn't call anyone to complain. He went home calm. Because clarity does that. The next morning, word began to travel. Not publicly. Privately. Ali had walked away from a threat involving a gun. And he had done it without raising his voice. Without a witness. Without drama. That detail unsettled people. Those who had tried to bully him expected at least a response. A warning. A counter-threat. A message sent back. They got nothing. Silence again. 2 days later, someone reached out to Ali through an intermediary. Not to threaten. To soften. The message was careful. There had been a misunderstanding. Things had been said that shouldn't have been said. No one intended disrespect. Ali listened, then answered with one sentence. He said misunderstandings don't involve guns. That was it. No further discussion. The intermediary didn't push. Because pushing now would only confirm what Ali had already exposed. The gun had turned a private attempt at influence into a liability. After that, doors quietly closed. Invitations stopped coming from certain quarters. Pressure that had been hinted at disappeared. Ali noticed. But he didn't comment. Because power that retreats quietly wants no witnesses. Weeks later, someone asked Ali if he'd been scared when the gun appeared. Ali paused. Thought. Then answered honestly. He said fear tells you what someone hopes you'll do next. He said clarity tells you what you will do. Ali said he had been very clear. That answer spread. Not because it was clever. Because it was true. Behind the scenes, the men involved never tried again. Not with Ali. Not with anyone like him. They learned something costly. Bullying only works when the target needs what you're offering. Ali needed nothing from them. And the gun, meant to end the conversation, had only ended their advantage. Years later, the story surfaced quietly in conversations about Ali. Never as a headline, never as a scandal. It was told as a lesson that Ali's strength wasn't just physical, it was situational. He knew when force mattered, and when it was meaningless. Ali never referenced the incident publicly. Not once, because he understood something most people don't. Moments like that aren't about proving bravery, they're about revealing weakness. And the weakness had not been his. The man who placed the gun on the table had believed that fear travels outward, that it spreads, that it multiplies. Ali showed the opposite. Fear collapses inward when it isn't fed. Ali continued his life unchanged, training, speaking, moving through rooms with the same calm presence. But the men who had tried to bully him moved differently afterward. More careful, less certain. Because once someone walks away from a gun, the gun stops being impressive. That was the real shift. Ali didn't win a confrontation that day. He ended one. He didn't overpower anyone. He made overpowering irrelevant. And that is why the moment mattered. They tried to bully Muhammad Ali. They believed leverage lived in intimidation. They believed a weapon would close the distance. But the moment the gun appeared, everything changed. Not because Ali reacted, but because he didn't. He showed them that threats only work on people who are willing to stay in the room. Ali wasn't. He walked out with his dignity intact. And he left behind something far more dangerous than anger: exposure. Because once intimidation is exposed as empty, it never regains its shape. The gun stayed on the table, useless, unacknowledged. And the men who placed it there understood something too late. They hadn't intimidated a champion. They had reminded him who he was.